What's going on, YouTube? I wanted to come to you today to bring some awareness to Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers. He's 16 years old. He's been missing now for 15 months from Hendersonville, Tennessee, the Stafford Court area. He's last spoken to on the night of the 25th. He was reported missing on the morning of the 26th when his mom, Katie Proudfoot, went to wake him up to go to school, and he was just like he had evaporated into thin air. And she was the last person with him. I mean, she have to remain their number one suspect just simply because she was the last person with him. But I don't think we'll get into that further on. But this is his father, Seth Rogers. He's in front of Sumner County Sheriff's Department / courthouse. He's expressing his disdain with the current administration there, and speaking on the 15-month anniversary of his son being missing.
Rogers, R-O-G-E-R-S. I'm Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers' father.
Well, talk to me a little bit. How long has it been since Sebastian?
15 months.
What has that been like? Okay, so for people joining, now the story, what has happened so far in terms of police investigation and all of that? We had helicopters, there was, TBI was out there, on horseback riding.
National Guard, there was ATVs, there were drones, everything for the first 8 days. And then for the rest of it, there's been somewhat communication with this department here. But I've also had conversations with them. Sheriff Craddock says he doesn't really care what his constituents think.
And like Seth says, that he don't feel like he's being in a loop. He feels very isolated, and I'm sure he does. But they can't include him in the investigative process. The wheels of justice turn very slow for everybody, and especially, I guess, if you got a kid missing and you're alone on an island looking for him, that you would feel this way, and I don't blame him for that. I would just say he probably should wear kid gloves when it comes to trying to run them down, especially with the public eye and with the local media's there in front of their courthouse and stuff. I don't blame him for it. I'm not mad at him for it. I would be doing the same thing. I'm just saying that could be part of the reason that they're not communicating with him. Another one maybe there's no new information, or maybe they do have information. We're not going to know until they make an arrest. And he's frustrated with his ex-wife, Katie, because she was the last one with Sebastian. I don't blame him for that either. But he also is aware of the same evidence that we're aware of, which is there was a video where they were seen coming home from the Texas Roadhouse and pulling into the driveway into the carport on the night of the 25th. And Sebastian comes back out, takes the garbage to the road, and goes back into the house. And the next video captured of someone leaving the house was the next morning when his mom came outside looking for him all around the yard with a neighbor, looking up under their house with a neighbor. And then she gets into her vehicle and leaves and drives around the neighborhood to look for him, and drives just a short distance to a school to look for him. But as she was on her way to do that, she stopped and spoke with neighbors that were outside their house that morning. So there's no way that Sebastian was in the car then. She wouldn't have stopped and spoke to these people at all. So I really believe somebody came into the house and abducted Sebastian out of his room. She says she heard a thud at 10 p.m. and told him to then knock it off and go to bed. And it very well may have been when the abductor was in the house and they threatened to hurt his mom or something. And he left without saying anything, and they just avoided the cameras on the way out. If somebody local to the area or familiar with the neighborhood that knew where all the cameras and stuff were at would know how to do that. And maybe they had been watching Sebastian coming off of the school bus, knew that his stepdad worked out of town, knew that Katie was there by herself with him. I really believe that something like that's what happened. And I think the sheriff's department has a really good idea of what happened. They just don't know where he's at right now.
Doesn't care what the public thinks. That's a problem when you're an elected official. My son's the one missing. I don't live in this county, and yet he's up there in his office over there, just chilling, enjoying his paycheck. while I'm sitting here trying to find my son. This weekend is International and National Missing Children's.
And I want to speak on that for a second too. May the 25th was National Missing and Exploited Children's Day, and there were several creators came out on YouTube, done some fundraisers, and donated all the money, the proceeds to that organization. Nick Mick, Cluminati did, Queen Bee did. There were a couple others that did, but the thing about it is, and the sheriff's department also is keeping up with this because social media has impacted this case so much. They don't have a choice but to keep up with what's going on. And Seth is aligned with some other people, creators, whatever you want to call them, that refuse to do these fundraisers, that say they don't trust these organizations. I mean, it's ridiculous, really. I would advise Seth he probably should think about that for a minute and maybe put himself in their shoes. Seth was part of a law enforcement. He may still be, I don't know. He worked for the Davidson County Sheriff's Department in their correction facility as a corrections officer. And he should understand this whole thing. He should understand what's going on right here. I know he's frustrated because his son's missing, though. And they're not going to hold this against him too much, but they're not going to tell him anything because of the people he's aligned with.
And mine's still missing. And it seems that the lack of communication and the lack of doing their job is leading to me believing that the case is going to go cold. I'm still getting tips in. There's still people saying that they're calling and putting in tips. But when I follow up on a tip, and the police departments at those locations haven't ever heard of Sumner County, or have never heard that my son, that tells me they're not doing their job.
Okay, and I want to say this too. Maybe what he says is true. Maybe when he gets a tip in and he follows it down, they've never heard of Sumner County Sheriff's Department. And it very well could be, it's one of two things. Either they're really not doing their jobs, or they know what happened to Sebastian, and they don't have enough evidence to make an arrest yet, so they know they don't need to follow up on those tips in Virginia or in Oregon or whatever. That very well could be what's going on here. Maybe they know enough, but not enough. You know what I'm saying? The evidence chain and everything, you got to have your evidence down before you make an arrest, because it's a one-shot deal. When you arrest somebody and charge them, especially in a case like this, the last thing you want to do is go to court and they not get convicted of the crime, especially if they're guilty of the crime, because you didn't have all your ducks in a row when it comes to the investigative procedure of this. So they could just be collecting what the rest of they could be, just trying to track down Sebastian right now. And they may know who did something to him. They just don't know exactly what they did to him and where they put him.
They're letting my son's case go home, not me. I will be out here a year from now, 2 years from now. Hopefully not that long. Hopefully my son is found. It'd be nice if his other parents were actually doing the same thing. But it all falls on my shoulders to ask people to help find my son. My son means something to me. These people should be doing their job. If a child goes missing.
Now, I also want to say that there were 5 Child Protective Service reports made to the Proudfoot home before Sebastian went missing. The last one was made in December, 2 months before Sebastian went missing. And Seth has a copy of these CPS records. He had to get a lawyer to get the copies, but they told him if he released those that they were going to charge him with a crime. I don't know what crime that would be or whatever, but I would tell Seth this. If you really feel like they're not making any headway in your son's case, that you need to really consider contacting like Dateline NBC or 2020. I think Dateline's done a story, hadn't aired yet. I would get in touch with them before it aired. I would tell the sheriff I'm going to release this to Dateline and let Dateline put this out to the public nationwide and see if he wants to tell you anything more. If he doesn't, I would go to Dateline, release those CPS reports, let them broadcast it, and let them charge you. I mean, what do you really got to lose? If that was in his situation, my kid was missing, and I really didn't know what else to do about it. That's exactly what I would do. I wouldn't care if they could charge me with whatever they wanted to. I don't think a jury would dare convict you for that, for trying to find your son, for trying to get some answers. I mean, they may, but I really doubt it. It's something to consider, though, and I normally wouldn't advise somebody to go against what law enforcement said. I just don't see how this could be a crime for him to release this information. It's his son just as much as it is the others, and that's where I think the system may have failed Seth, is CPS should have to notify both parents. If they have to go to one parent's home, they should have to notify the other parent of that situation. And they didn't do this with Seth, and I think that's where the system has really failed Seth, and that's some new legislation I think needs to be looked into. If it's not already a law, it should be made a law.
Putting in the effort as if it was your child that witnessed. These people aren't doing
That kind of leads me to my next question. What would you like to see?
that. I'd like to see them actually do a press conference where they actually have my son's picture in the back. Because the last time they did a press conference, Sumner County and TBI, they didn't even have a picture of the missing child. Most press conferences, when it's about a missing child, at least they have the dignity to have a picture of the missing child in the background. So the people watching the news can know that this is the person they're looking for. And they don't even show that.
Would you like to see them conducting more searches?
I would love to see them actually conducting more searches. I'd like to have some communication on the tips that have come in just with me, so that I know that when a tip comes in, I'm not following up on what the job they're supposed to do. But at this point,
And like I said, they may not be following up on these tips because they already know something that they don't have to follow up on those tips. And they can't tell Seth either because they get vigilante justice out of it, or if they give him the wrong information that's got something to do with his wife and her husband, Chris and Katie Proudfoot, that he could leak that information back to them accidentally, because they're not going to come out and say, we think they did this. I mean, they could tell him, look, we're pretty close to making an arrest on this, or right now we're just trying to locate your son, we know what happened. But then he would be raising Cain about them not telling him what happened, and I don't blame him at all, and I don't think they do either. But just keep that in mind. If you see this, Seth, we're praying for you. I don't know what to tell you, brother. Keep your head up, keep fighting the fight. Really take that into consideration. I would take those CPS reports. I think that's your ace in the hole right here. And if you get it through the national media, somebody like Dateline, it may draw the right attention to get some other resources put towards this.
time with their lack of, I don't know what you would consider the unprofessionalism. I don't even know if a tip comes in, if I shouldn't track it down, because I don't know if they can do their job properly. Because so far they haven't. My son's been missing for 15 months. And they don't care. Their lack of communication with the public, their lack of communication with me, is all telling me that they don't care that my son is missing.
In the statement, they reached out to
And they absolutely do care his son's missing. And another reason they're not talking to him is because one of the people he has had protesting up there and everything else that's been arrested is she's making public statements that she thinks his son was dismembered and thrown out the window like garbage, which is the most vile, atrocious bunch of bullshit I've ever heard in my life. And I'm not even going to give her the time of day to even say her name, but it probably is not hard to figure it out.
You're an idiot if you're on Medicare and still haven't gotten your $900 reloadable senior card because it
we are working on things behind the scenes. Is that frustrating? You're kind of talking about it a little bit.
To me, I'm working on it behind the scenes, and you don't know what's going on, is a huge shield on I'm not doing anything because my pockets have been flat. This gentleman that got elected here, if this is what Sumner County wants to represent their law enforcement, then I am sorry for any child that goes missing in this county. They just had a missing child go missing out of Hendersonville PD. Don't know what the circumstances are, but Henderson found a child. Found a child yesterday. Like, less than 24 hours from my understanding, the child was missing and the child was...
And he's right. They had another autistic child that went missing around the midnight time frame. They lived 4 miles from where Sebastian came up missing. And they did locate him like the next day, sometime around dinner. But that's the difference between a runaway and an abduction. You can track down the runaways pretty easy. The abduction is really hard because whoever's doing the abducting is trying to cover their tracks. And whoever done it here did a really good job to cover them electronically, avoid the cameras, all that. It just has to be somebody from inside the house or somebody from inside the neighborhood, in my opinion. Could be a lawn service, could be a pool service. I mean, there's a lot of swimming pools. All these houses had security cameras, though. They've checked all the footage. Somebody knew where his bedroom and stuff was and how to get in this house and get him out of the house. And they didn't take him very far because they had to have left on foot.
I'm here 15 months, and they'd rather not answer their phone or even be at work. I'm tired of having to text Brandon Carter to try to get information because he's too much of a yellow-belly coward to pick up the phone like a real person and communicate with the father of a missing child.
How do you think, I guess, 'cause I know you've been speaking with other parents too that have gone through similar situations or just with active cases like right now. But I guess, what do you kind of do to help with this? What advice would you give to kind of help?
I continue to pass out flyers. I continue to make sure that there's available information. People ask me, I answer what I can. Because I know that some information or anything is given me, I can't tell you. And I understand that. We're trying to make sure the case stays. But I'm trying to find my son. They're trying to solve the case. You can't go out and solve a case if you don't find my son. And I've sent out an email to both the senators of the state of Tennessee. I've sent out an email to every representative of the state of Tennessee, and none of them want to respond. The only person that has responded was a representative from Marshall Blackburn, one of her case representatives, actually called me back, and I had to tell them what was going on. They didn't even know my son was missing. There's still people in the state of...
And I don't blame Seth for reaching out to the legislation in the state of Tennessee about what's going on there, especially if he's not getting any answers whatsoever out of the sheriff's department. The sheriff's department should at least explain to him why they're not telling him anything and let him try to correct that behavior so he can get a little bit more information. But it simply may be that they already know and that they're really close to making an arrest or something, like I say. But I don't blame Seth, and nobody really should blame Seth for this. I mean, if your child's missing, you're going to do everything in your power to have him found. And Seth feels so isolated right now because there's been zero leads on this. And it really looks like they're not doing their job. But I promise you, if there's anybody besides Seth and Katie and Chris that want this case solved, it's the Sumner County Sheriff's Department. Simply because of the circus that's been made out of it with social media. This case has been impacted by social media in a historical sense that I really think there will be some kind of legislation made on it.
Tennessee that don't know how many children go missing every day. And people are just like, it's fine. They don't care. Well, you gotta start caring somewhere. Because if they don't care, they're not going to do their job. And it's
all the news, but Fox News is claiming President Trump is declining in the polls. And President Trump responded.
People, we run this country, people. We are the ones that are supposed to care. If you don't care about your children, then why are you having them? And if you care about your children, please make sure you hug them tight at night and watch them during find Osama bin Laden, but they can't find my son who's been missing for 15 months. How many other parents are out there that their children are missing? They don't even bother to do interviews because they don't care. Well, I care about my son. His name is Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers. And if you can't say his name, we've got problems.
And I want to say this too. Sebastian was 15 at the time he went missing. And everybody thinks this is probably some kind of a custody thing, that Sebastian was going to live with his father in just a couple of months from the time he went missing. School got out in May, I think, and that's when he was going to go live with Seth for a while. But Sebastian's also 15. When you're 12 years old in the state of Tennessee, you're able to tell the court which parents you would prefer to live with, and they will accommodate that. So, and at 16, they can emancipate themselves from all their parents and take on the responsibility of being an adult on their own. So I really don't think a runaway is what we have here at all. This is just an abduction, probably a crime of opportunity or something for some monster.
Parent demands answers. We demand answers because our heart is missing. I'm in the process of writing a law, and I'm going to need support to push this law into Congress. And it's a federal oversight law on places like CPS, DCS, the Amber Alert, taking it out of people's hands that don't care about the children, and getting actual agencies that do to take over the case. Because they won't relinquish it because they're too proud to understand that sometimes you have to ask for help. I ask for help every day. I ask people to pass out flyers. I ask people to...
And I mean, he's got to understand they do care about finding this child. He has to think about the help they did ask for in the beginning of this. I mean, they can only ask for so much help. There's only so many resources that can be dedicated to this. The sheriff department itself is probably understaffed and underfunded, and they have a lot of crime to fight in around the Sumner County area. It's a large population of people. There's a lot of crime, and they do want Sebastian found. I promise you, they do. They don't want all these children, anything to happen to any of them. And I know he's just really mad right now, but to go out to the local news and do that is kind of a punch in the nose.
Remember my son's name. Keep his picture up. Keep your eyes open to see if you see him. And if you do see him, please call 911. And if you have my son, please understand that he is my world. I need him. I need him back with me. And son, if you can see this, if you can hear this, understand that I will not let you go back to that environment you came from. Over my dead body, should a child ever have to endure what happened in that house that he was in. And I am so sorry that I did not know what was going on. But I will.
And that's another thing. I really hope you take into consideration what I told you about the CPS reports, that to release those maybe to Dateline or something after you talk to the sheriff and tell him what you're going to do to try to get some information. He's also brought in At Night Media Source, which is not a credible source at all, and Dog the Bounty Hunter, who's made his name from TV show and capturing 10,000 fugitives on a freaking island. I mean, how hard is it to capture somebody on an island? I know he went to Mexico and captured Andrew Luster, got locked up for that down there and almost got sent to prison. But he's on an island, people. I mean, come on. I know he's done a little bit in Colorado or anything, but if you live on an island and you're after people who's jumping bail on an island, it's not hard to catch them. They're either going to go in the volcano, in the water, or home.
Do my best to bring you home and keep you safe from me.
Talk a little bit about it, and I know you spoke before about this, but
started using Renew a Lift every morning, and I literally noticed.
It's the same thing every day. You know, getting out of bed, the only reason I get out of bed is to try to find my son. That's it. It's the only thing that gets me out of bed at times. Just hoping that I got the right tip. I've been to Bristol, Virginia, to check up on the last tip. And people said that they called it in. They called it into Sumner County. Well, when I went up there and spoke to the police department, they had never heard from Sumner County. And they didn't know that my son was missing. So I gave them flyers, I gave them contact information for the FBI, for TBI. I've got text messages between me and Brandon Carter. That's all I have for the last 15, months. And those text messages.
And Brandon Carter's the detective that's working on this case, and Seth has to understand too that he's not going to put stuff into a text message that could be screenshot and mailed around or texted around to a whole group of people or get into the wrong hands of some people. I just really hope everybody keeps Sebastian in their prayers. Keep Seth, Katie, Chris in your prayers. Let's try to get Sebastian home. If you see something, say something. The FBI does have out a $50,000 reward for Sebastian, for the location of Sebastian or return of Sebastian or leading to the prosecution somebody might have done to Sebastian. That's the only legitimate reward out there. There's like a $500,000 reward or something you may see floating around, and $50,000 is from the FBI, and the rest of that's coming from Dog the Bounty Hunter and That Night Media. But if you read the stipulations of those rewards, you'll never collect them. So the only thing you can take credible is the $50,000.
Stating from day one, we need more than just one set of eyes on this case. Same guy looking for the same information. Last time I had a face-to-face meeting with him, and we went over videos, I pointed out things. He was like, well, I didn't notice that before. That's why you have to have more than one set of eyes on the information.
That's concerning too for residents.
It just goes to show that their motivation isn't doing their job or their civic duties. That oath to the Constitution, when you take it, it's got to mean something to you. And I'm not saying that it means anything to them.
What is your message to police officers?
If you carry a shield and you don't want to do your job, you're the problem with it. You're the problem with the professionalism. You become law enforcement to serve the people. And my son's not being served by this one. Neither am I. To all the parents that are missing children out there, I'm praying with you every day that your child comes home, that your child is found. And I am praying every day that Sebastian Wayne Great Rogers is found and brought home. Everybody be blessed and stay safe. Hug your
Okay, so that wraps up Seth's interview there, and it's really hard to watch because this man is really hurting. He's really longing for his son to come home, and I would really hate to be in his position. I really don't know what I'd do. Your mind is your own worst enemy. If you're staying by yourself, Seth, you need to get out and even go fishing for a day. I mean, come on. It beats sitting in the house waiting by the phone. Sebastian wouldn't want you to bring yourself down that way, and you're going to have to get out. and quit beating yourself to death over this. Now, I just like to ask everybody to pray for Sebastian, Seth, Chris, Katie. Keep Sebastian's name up front. Just don't forget about Sebastian. See something, say something. Thank you all for stopping in here and watch the video today. Please like, share, subscribe, share anywhere you want to. Leave a comment down below. I know I need to get YouTube Premium, get away from the ads, but that's how Seth gets his revenue too. So, all right, guys. Thank you. Stay safe. Be blessed.